The golden sun rose over the vast Serengeti, spilling warmth across acacia trees and whispering grasses, but something felt wrong in the wind, a silence that spoke louder than sound. Ranger Amara, known among locals and wildlife alike as a guardian of the wild, stepped softly through the morning mist, her boots brushing against the dew-soaked earth. Today was meant to be a routine patrol through Mamba Ridge, a migration route usually buzzing with zebra calls and elephant trumpets. But as she moved deeper into the bush, the silence thickened, and her instincts whispered of danger. Amara, ever vigilant, adjusted the strap of her field pack and crouched to study the dirt beneath her. Her eyes locked onto something troubling: fresh boot prints. Not hers. Not any ranger's. She followed the trail with quiet precision until a sudden crack behind her shattered the air like thunder. Before she could react, hands seized her, rough, forceful, efficient. Masked men, poachers she'd suspected for weeks, surrounded her with cruel grins and cold weapons. "You've been meddling for too long, Ranger girl," one spat as they dragged her to a nearby acacia, binding her wrists tight with scratchy rope. They crushed her radio, stomped on her GPS, and left her gear scattered like broken dreams. "Let's see if your animal friends save you now," another mocked before they vanished into the brush, leaving her exposed to the baking sun and the dangers of the wild. Time slowed. Sweat trickled down her temple. Her muscles screamed against the binds, but Amara stayed calm. She scanned the horizon, but all she saw was waving grass and the unforgiving blaze of the African sky. Her lips cracked with thirst, yet she refused to surrender to fear. Somewhere in the back of her mind, a memory stirred: Baruti, the orphaned lion cub she'd nursed back to life years ago. He had vanished into the wild long ago, a ghost of her past. But suddenly, the tall grass ahead rustled, not with the skittish steps of antelope or the low crawl of hyenas, but with something heavier. A majestic lion emerged, golden and broad-shouldered, his amber eyes glowing like firelight. Amara's breath hitched. It couldn't be. But as he approached, his movements cautious yet familiar, recognition flickered between them like lightning. It was Baruti. No longer a cub, but a king of the land. He stopped a few feet away, his mane swaying in the breeze, staring at her not with hunger, but with memory. The silence broke, not with sound, but with something deeper, a bond reigniting. The wild, it seemed, never forgets kindness. And what happened next would leave the entire world stunned. Baruti stood tall, the golden savanna breeze ruffling his thick mane as he gazed at Amara, still tied to the tree, her face pale but eyes unwavering. For a long moment, nothing moved. The world held its breath as predator and protector faced each other across a line etched by memory. Amara dared not speak, her throat dry, heart pounding not with fear but hope. This lion wasn't just any beast of the wild. He was the same cub she'd once fed with trembling hands during a stormy night, the one she had wrapped in blankets and carried on her back to the ranger outpost when poachers had slaughtered his pride. And now, years later, the bond they shared had returned in the unlikeliest moment. Baruti took a step forward, nose twitching, ears alert. The ropes holding Amara to the acacia creaked with her slightest shift. She whispered his name, not a shout, just a soft, pleading breath: "Baruti!" The lion's eyes flickered with recognition, and in an instant, his instincts shifted. No longer wary, he moved with purpose, lowering his head to sniff the ropes. Then, with surprising gentleness for a creature born to hunt, Baruti gripped the binds with his teeth and began pulling. His powerful jaws worked carefully, tearing away at the scratchy rope until it frayed and snapped. Amara collapsed to her knees, her wrists raw, but her heart overflowing with disbelief. She reached out slowly, palm up, like she did so many years ago when he was just a fragile cub. Baruti's massive paw came forward, resting near her hand, a silent gesture of trust. Then came a sound that chilled her blood, the distant hum of engines and a sharp bark of laughter. The poachers were coming back. Amara froze, but Baruti didn't. The lion's ears perked, his gaze sharpened, and with a low, guttural growl that rolled like thunder, he turned to face the approaching danger. Amara scrambled to her feet, hiding behind the tree as three men pushed through the grass, guns slung over their shoulders. "She's still here," one grunted, then stopped cold at the sight of Baruti, who now stood protectively in front of Amara, his tail flicking with tension. One poacher raised his weapon, but before he could aim, Baruti let loose a roar so powerful, it seemed to shake the earth itself. The men faltered. The leader shouted something in panic, and all three bolted, crashing back into the bush. Baruti gave chase just far enough to send the message before returning to Amara's side. She leaned against the tree, breathless and awestruck. "You saved me," she whispered. The lion didn't respond, but his steady eyes said everything. He had made a choice, not as a beast of the wild, but as a friend, a protector, a creature who remembered. And as the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the sky in hues of fire, Amara knew this was only the beginning. The world had just witnessed something extraordinary, a lion defending a human he once loved. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the savannah as Amara and Baruti stood side by side, their silhouettes etched against the orange-gold horizon like characters out of a forgotten legend. Still shaken but alive, Amara pressed her hand gently against Baruti's mane, marveling at the surreal bond that had just rewritten the rules of nature and trust. "We need to move," she whispered, scanning the distance for the ranger outpost's radio tower, barely visible miles away. Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of the moment. She had just been saved by a lion. A lion she once saved. But the danger wasn't over yet. Somewhere in the bush, those poachers were regrouping, armed, angry, and determined not to let their secret location be exposed. Amara took a step, her legs weak but driven by purpose, and Baruti followed, his movements silent, his senses sharpened like a true guardian. Every sound in the brush, every rustle of wind, he read like a story written in the language of the wild. The two unlikely companions moved together, woman and lion, tracker and protector, leaving behind only prints in the dust, a trail that spoke of defiance, survival, and something almost mythic. As they pushed forward, Amara spotted a broken trap, its teeth rusted and cruel, hidden under leaves. She paused, anger flashing in her eyes. "They've been laying these everywhere," she murmured, snapping a photo with her dusty phone. "People need to see this." She turned to Baruti, who snorted as if in agreement, his breath misting in the cooling air. The savannah was beginning to wake again, the call of a distant jackal, the flurry of birds returning to their nests, but beneath the calm, a tension remained. Baruti stopped suddenly, ears twitching. Amara crouched instinctively, placing her hand on the dirt like she'd been trained to do. Tracks, fresh ones. And not from animals. Heavy boots, scattered in panic, leading in all directions. The poachers were close, and confused. Amara's mind raced. If she could just reach the ridge ahead, the high ground might give her a signal to call for backup. She started moving faster, pushing her battered body beyond exhaustion, with Baruti now trotting beside her, alert but calm. It was in that quiet urgency that Amara realized something powerful. This lion wasn't just protecting her. He was guiding her, reading the land, steering her away from danger before it came too close. And then, like a miracle, the ridge appeared. She scrambled to the top, fumbling with her satellite radio, praying for a signal, for help. A single bar blinked to life. "This is Ranger Amara. I need immediate extraction. Coordinates incoming." As she transmitted her location, a low rumble echoed in the distance. Not thunder, but engines. The poachers had found their direction again. Baruti stood at the edge of the ridge, tail flicking, eyes burning with silent resolve. Amara looked at him and knew, this battle wasn't over, but together they had a chance. She wasn't just a ranger anymore. She was part of something deeper, wilder, and more powerful than she ever imagined. The dust was still settling when the roar split through the silence like thunder cracking across the sky, deep, guttural, and unmistakably Baruti's. From her perch atop the ridge, Amara froze, her eyes darting to where the lion stood, his body tense, tail low, ears flat against his massive golden head. He was no longer simply a companion. He was a warrior ready to defend what mattered. Below them, through a break in the acacia trees, shadows emerged, 3, maybe 4 figures moving fast, armed with rifles and machetes, their movements erratic but focused. "They followed us," Amara whispered, clutching her radio, heart pounding like tribal drums in her chest. But Baruti didn't wait. With an agility both graceful and terrifying, he leapt down from the ridge, a blur of muscle and mane charging into the scrub. The poachers shouted in panic, their voices rising in fear and confusion. One fired wildly, the shot echoing in the air, but it missed, thudding harmlessly into the trunk of an ancient baobab. Amara scrambled for cover, torn between staying safe and needing to see what was happening. Peering through the brush, she caught glimpses of the chaos, Baruti circling, feinting, roaring again with a fury that shook leaves from the trees. The poachers weren't prepared for this. They thought they were hunting prey, not facing a king of the wild in full command of his domain. One dropped his weapon and ran. Another fell, tripped by a root, and vanished behind a thicket. Amara's instincts kicked in. She grabbed her phone and began recording, every moment, every charge, every retreat, capturing the truth not just for evidence, but for the world to witness the power of nature's justice. This wasn't just a lion defending a friend. This was a symbol of resistance against cruelty, a reminder that the wild, though wounded, could still rise. As the remaining poachers scattered, Baruti stood tall in the clearing, chest heaving, golden eyes scanning the horizon. Amara raced down to him, careful but unafraid. "You did it," she said, her voice thick with awe and emotion. He looked at her, really looked, and something passed between them. Not fear, not dominance, but trust. The kind that's forged only in moments of survival and soul. Sirens wailed in the distance, backup finally en route. The cavalry was coming, but it was the lion who had saved the day. Amara turned the camera on herself, breathless. "This is Ranger Amara reporting from Komatsi," she said. "This lion, Baruti, he's not just a survivor. He's a protector. He saved my life. And he reminded me why we fight for the wild." She paused, her gaze drifting to Baruti beside her. "If you believe in second chances, in the bond between humans and animals, please like, comment, and share this story. The world needs to know what happened today." The sun dipped lower behind them, casting a golden glow on the savannah. But a new dawn had begun, not just for Amara, but for every heart that still believed in wild miracles. The sun rose over Komatsi like a spotlight unveiling the hero of a grand stage, casting long golden rays across the dusty terrain where Baruti, the lion who defied every expectation, now paced calmly beside Ranger Amara. The world hadn't just noticed, it had erupted. The video Amara uploaded went viral within hours, spreading like wildfire through conservation groups, wildlife lovers, influencers, and news outlets worldwide. Headlines screamed, "Lion saves Ranger," and real-life jungle justice, poachers flee in fear. Meanwhile, the comments section overflowed with thousands of messages, some stunned, others emotional, many thankful, praising Baruti's loyalty and Amara's bravery. Teachers shared the clip in classrooms. Children drew pictures of a fierce lion standing beside a strong female ranger. Wildlife foundations pledged donations, and hashtags like #BarutiTheBrave and #ProtectTheWild began trending globally. But for Amara, the attention wasn't about fame, it was about purpose. With every interview request and podcast invitation, she returned the spotlight to the cause. The urgent need to protect Africa's vanishing wildlife and empower those who risk everything to defend it. "Baruti didn't just save me," she said during a live TV segment. "He reignited the world's empathy for animals who still fight to live free." While Amara became the voice, Baruti became the symbol. His image on t-shirts, his roar set to music in reels and edits, and even fan art portraying him wearing a ranger's badge. Back in the reserve, the rangers celebrated with respectful cheers, not for spectacle but for survival. Poachers caught that day were now in custody, thanks to Baruti's fearless intervention and Amara's fast thinking. New security protocols were funded by donations inspired by the viral footage. Baruti was no longer a misunderstood orphaned cub, he was a living legend. Yet, the lion seemed unfazed by his newfound fame. He remained grounded in instinct, strolling the savannah with quiet dignity, as if to say, "I did what had to be done." Amara, watching from her hut, knew this was more than a rescue story, it was a movement. "He reminded us all," she said in her next video update, "that courage isn't only found in humans." She encouraged viewers to take action, support conservation, adopt a rescue animal, educate others. "If this story touched your heart," she added, "don't scroll past. Like it, share it, talk about it. Let this lion's roar echo far beyond Komatsi." Comments poured in, with people from Tokyo to Toronto promising to stand for wildlife, pledging donations, and asking for updates on Baruti's well-being. The ranger station's inbox overflowed with volunteer applications. One moment of raw instinct had changed everything. And while Amara knew there was still danger, still battles to fight for the wild, she also knew they weren't alone anymore. Not with the whole world watching. And certainly not with Baruti watching too, eyes ever sharp, heart ever fierce, standing proudly at the edge of the world he vowed to protect. The rain came softly that morning in Komatsi, more of a blessing than a storm. Amara stood near the acacia tree where it had all happened, where fear had once wrapped her like vines, and where a lion's roar had shattered the silence and saved her life. Now, just weeks later, she stood strong again, not as a victim, but as a voice. Beside her stood Baruti, his golden mane damp from the morning drizzle, eyes scanning the horizon, majestic and calm. What began as a single act of courage had blossomed into a movement. The park had become a hub of hope, with new rangers joining the force, drone surveillance donated by wildlife lovers, and international partnerships forming faster than ever before. People weren't just watching anymore, they were acting. Children mailed hand-drawn letters addressed to the brave lion, and elders from nearby villages shared stories of when lions walked among humans as guardians, not enemies. And in that moment, Amara realized, Baruti had not only saved a life, he had sparked a roar loud enough to wake the world.